Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Pro Landscaper TV. Thank you for joining us today. We should normally take 30 to 40 minutes for each of the programme. Pro Landscaper TV has now been running since January 2021. And we've had over 20 programmes. These can be viewed on either the Pro Landscaper website, Pro Landscaper Facebook account, Pro Landscaper YouTube channel. To date, we've had around 10,000 views across all of our platforms. If you do view them and like them and enjoy them, please like them, because that helps us with the algorithms and pushes us up the channel, so please do that. Today's programme is being streamed across Facebook Live, Instagram Live and via Zoom. So welcome however you're watching it. Thank you very much for tuning in. Next week is the last one in this current season. We're taking a break for summer and we're back in the first week of September. And next week I'll be talking to Gareth Wilson. Gareth has vast experience of landscaping. He's built award-winning show gardens, but now I think quite importantly, he's working as an expert witness. So there's lots to discuss on that. Today we're focusing on business development and business growth. We have two expert coaches and business advisors, both working with UK landscaping and construction companies within the sector. So I'm delighted to welcome Alison Warner and Nick Ruddle. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining us.
Hello.
Appreciate your time. Good on it. Just to start, I guess it's one of those things where you hear different things about the value of business coaches and what they can actually bring to the business. I think I'm quite lucky in terms that I look at lots of entries for awards and I can see the value that a business coach can play in a company, and especially in that small to medium sized business, which is quite typical of the landscaping sector. So if you both just a very quick introduction into yourselves and a little bit about what you do, and then start getting into questions. If I can come to you first, Alison.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks very much for having me on the show, Jim. So my background is in retail and hospitality. It's quite different as a sector, but then there are obviously a lot of similarities. So I think, in any business, you've got a customer, you've got people to manage, and you've got profit to make and sales to make. And the businesses I worked for, businesses such as Pizza Hut, Starbucks, Pizza Express, all started out at some point as a single business, but what enabled them to scale was essentially systems and processes. So documenting their operating standards and having systems and processes in place, whether that be how to manage your numbers or how to recruit and develop a team of people. And it's really what I've done is taken the expertise from a lot of these big companies and kind of adapted it to make it palatable for construction and trades to enable them to grow and scale. Yeah,
excellent.
In a nutshell.
Nick, I know you work with quite a lot of landscape companies, and again, systems is quite important for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think the same, all the same stuff that applies to the large corporates. It applies exactly the same to small companies. They all need the right systems and processes in place, but unfortunately most of them don't. So I've been coaching since 2007, over 5,000 hours of one-to-one coaching, lots of webinars and seminars and workshops. And about 60% of our clients at the moment are in the landscape industry, as you know, and some of them, our longest serving client, I think, has just gone into their 9th year. And over that time, the challenges are all the same. I think they're great at what they do, landscape related people, landscapers or designers, very good at what they do, but not always as good at running the business as they do on the operational stuff. So it's great to be able to educate them so that their knowledge on the operational stuff is still great, but it's just bringing that up to the same level so they become professional business people as well. And I think there's so much passion in the landscape industry. All the clients we have are so passionate about what they do. They care so much about doing a great job. And I think they get frustrated by not having the results that they should be getting. So I think when you work with them and you get the results and they're delivering a great end product, it's a wonderful, very rewarding career to have.
I just pick up a bit on that, Nick, where you say you coach them to do it, because it's where is that line and where does a business coach integrate into running the business and actually coaching the people to run the business? How do you differentiate between the two?
Well, I think the difference between, the main benefits of coaching I see are two things: education and accountability. So first of all, we've got to educate people to do things better, because if they become better, they do better, therefore they have better results. So, you've got to have the two working in tandem, because what we know we need to do and what we actually sometimes do are two different things. So having a coach there gives you that accountability to make sure you do the things that you should be doing, but if it's left to yourself, you possibly might not do it, So I think it comes down to education, because if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll get the same results you've always had.
And Alison, what about in terms of the integration with you, and how integrated do you become within the businesses that you work with?
With my private clients, very integrated, yes. And I think it's almost, my journey going from corporate into working with SMEs was, I kind of realized it's almost like you don't know what you don't know. And it's that bit, I mean, a true coach, the true discipline of coaching, you can coach anybody on anything. You don't need to know the subject. And that's how I started out. And then I realized that I had all of this knowledge from my past that I wasn't necessarily sharing. Such as, how to read a profit and loss account, or which numbers to track and measure in your business that are really, really critical, that alert you to problems, which then enable you to react in time, all of these sorts of subject areas. And so I kind of changed it and pivoted a bit, and I would kind of call it more business training and mentoring. So it's sharing my past knowledge and skills that I learned from these really good companies that I worked for, and taking it into this marketplace. But it's almost, you don't know what you don't know sometimes, and it's it can be very, very enlightening, and just the key that can unlock that success in a business.
And Nick, do you look at companies and know you can help and not help? Did you get the feeling that the type of company that's typical for you to add value to quite quickly? Or
I think, the longer you've done it, the easier it is to spot instantly. Most of them probably struggling with the wrong kind of people. A lot of the challenges they face is not having the right people, but then not knowing how to recruit the right people, knowing what the key things are that you need to have in place in order to attract the best kind of people, the right kind of people for you. So having your company's core values, which is basically your identity and the rules of working for you. If you want to work here, these are the kind of people we have. Once you've got the right people on the bus, then a lot of the other things fall into place. But a lot of people are not experts at recruitment or management or leadership, so you have to develop those kind of skills. But obviously you need to have great systems and processes in place, because otherwise you've got all these people coming in, even if they're great people, but if there's no structure or no systems or no sort of proven methodology of how to do things, then everyone's going to be doing it in their own way and getting inconsistent results. So I think if you can identify that they don't have the right people or there's no systems, then obviously straight away that there's areas to focus on.
And just going to structure then. So is it? I guess it comes to Alison on this. And is it all one size fits all, or are there how tailored are the structures that you need to put in place to a business? So if I'm sitting here running a landscaping business, very, very good at my skill, would you impose what you've done elsewhere onto my business, or how does that work?
So I think there are definitely commonalities. So in terms of, say, as Nick's just said there, a recruitment process, or perhaps how you bring people into a company and how you induct them. A lot of people don't think about that. They fill the vacancy, and then it's almost, and you see this in big companies as well, it's almost like this relief. Oh, we've found the person, we've filled the vacancy, and they relax. And actually, it's proven the first 90 days in any new job is absolutely critical to how likely that person is to stay with you and do a good job for you. But I think we use a profiling tool called Talent Dynamics, which does bring a different individuality to it. So it's a personality profiling tool which essentially highlights where your strengths lie and where they don't lie, in terms of the things that don't perhaps energize you as much. And so there is a layer on top of that consistent structure that can be adapted to that individual owner. So for example, if you are a supporter profile, the likelihood is you love going out and getting the business and meeting people and being around people. You're not so energized by the back of house and the numbers and the detail and the process, but that still needs to get done. And so what we say is, don't force yourself to do something that doesn't come naturally. Bring somebody else in to do that task. Now, the initial fear there is often, oh, I can't afford to do it. And they feel they can't afford to do it because they're judging the success of their business by what's in their bank account. And that's very, very dangerous. So we always start with the numbers. There's always some basics we start with, which the numbers, financial forecasting, and talent dynamics, because then that shows me, if it was your business, for example, Jim, it would show me exactly where your strengths lie. Where can you add the most value to your business? And who are the two people that you need to support you in some shape or form? It might not be employing them, it might just be outsourcing them, but they need to be involved in the business in some shape or form in order to balance it and enable you to grow.
I saw you nodding your head there, Nick, too, about judging the business by what's in their bank account. Yeah, I guess it's something you look at as well and agree.
I think the very first couple of areas we look at really is the mastery level, so the foundations of the business, and one of those areas is money mastery. One of those is time mastery, because a lot of the people are quite time poor to begin with. So you can have all the ideas and strategies in the world, but if they don't have the time to implement, it's never going to happen. But I think, you know, hand in hand with that, having great understanding and expertise and knowledge around your numbers is crucial, because if you're not really making a lot of profit, or if you're actually making a loss, if you think, right, we need to go and get more business, you just end up going bust quicker. So, you know, understanding your margins, your pricing, and having you haven't got to be an expert, you haven't got to be an accountant, you just got to know what the numbers mean and how to interpret them. And a lot of business owners, not just in the landscaping industry, but in all industries, they don't necessarily know the numbers, and it scares them, so they avoid them, you know. And it actually, once you understand it, it's like once you learn anything that you don't know, when you know it, it's easy. But when you don't know it, it's all confusing and scary. So I think, you know, what Alison said there is absolutely spot on. I think you've got to get the numbers right early on, because otherwise you're working like a busy fool, potentially.
Yeah.
And another thing is, like, how much is the personality of the coach and the personality of the business owner? How important is that? You know, is there a priority that you feel that you can work with the person and vice versa? Because there's an array of different coaches with different skill sets and you know, could add different values to business. How much should be based on, actually, I can really work with this person? What's your thoughts, Alison? I guess I'll start with you on that one.
I think it's crucial. Yes, I mean, I have lots of different personalities of clients, but I guess what I'm looking for at that initial stage as to whether or not I want to work with somebody is, first and foremost, do I feel they've got the capability to make that step, and how committed are they? Because all we can do as business coaches is support and shine the light. We can't do it for them. And so they've got to follow through, and you know, I'll put 150% in when I'm working with a client, and I work with 15 clients at one time, so that I can, you know, devote the time that's required. But it's absolutely crucial that I know that they're committed and they're willing to follow through and do, when I say the hard work, it's not necessarily physical or a lot of hours, it's more the mindset shift. Yeah. Can they make that shift from being on the tools and being a trade to actually being a business owner and managing a team? It's that journey. Yeah.
And Nick, on signing up with you then, what is the commitment that a business owner has to put forward and has to put their hand up and say, yes, I'm prepared to do that? What kind of pressure is it put onto their workload?
Well, the thing is, when I sit down with someone for the first time, I'll be looking for three things. And Alison's mentioned one of them there, about commitment. So it's passion, commitment, and vision. So I'll write those three words down, and I won't necessarily ask them or tell them that, but I'll be looking out for that. And at the end, I'll say, you know, I look for three traits in people, because, you know, it's a simple process, but it's not necessarily easy. So when the going gets tough, you know, if they're not prepared to put the work in, if they're not committed, if they're not really that bothered, not that passionate, then they're not going to do the work. Therefore, they're not going to get great results. You know, it's like going to a personal trainer and then sitting in the pub 3 months later drinking your beer and saying, oh, I had a personal trainer once, it was useless. But, you know, if you've got to do the work. So you don't necessarily want to take those clients on, because, you know, it's not going to good for your reputation, and it's a waste of their money and your time. So I think, you know, if you can see that in them, and you can see that they're really keen, but they just don't necessarily have the right skills and the tools to do the right job, the business tools to do the job, then they're never necessarily going to be good clients, and they're not going to stay for a long time. You know, our longest client in the industry, who you know who that is, Jim, been working with them for 9 years now, just gone into into their 10th year. And people won't stay if they're not committed and if they're not passionate. But you will stay if you keep getting results and you resonate with your coach. You know, I think the coach is really important. You've got to like each other. If you think about it, any relationship, you've got to like that person for it to continue. If you don't quite feel that
chemistry,
then you're probably not going to enjoy the coaching, because you don't sort of gel as two individuals.
And as the word coach important rather than an advisor, is it? You know, is it a business coach or a business advisor?
I tend to use neither. I tend to just say I work with construction and trade businesses to help them grow, scale, and feel more organized and more in control, because that's what people are looking for. I don't think they're really too bothered about, probably the average Joe Blow doesn't really know the difference between coaching, mentoring, advising, training. They just want their problem solved. And so I kind of learned that early on when I started out 11 years ago, when I was working with one of my early mentors, really. And that was a valuable learning. Yeah, because there's so many different business coaches out there and we all do it in a slightly different way. So yeah, I just tend to talk in terms of this is who I work with, this is what I do.
Just moving on slightly, Nick, and in terms of, is a real value to a business owner when they are trying to scale or grow, rather than maybe they just want to do their business slightly better? You know, does there have to be some kind of ambition to make a coach, advisor, a mentor, however we're going to recall it, work?
Yeah, well, I think you need to have a vision as an individual, as a business owner, to be able to engage and enroll and inspire your people to be wanting to be buying into that final destination. If you don't know where you're going, then how can you sort of rally the troops and get everyone in the same direction? So you need to have, I think, a bit more ambition than just trying to fix the problems. I think, you know, that will hold people back, and it's not going to inspire others around them, because then it's just going to be a job going in every day to day to just do a job, and that's not sustainable, I don't think, for anyone, really. I think people need to be inspired. They need to buy into your vision, what you're trying to achieve, to make you look better than your competitors, you know, working for someone else, so that they feel they're actually part of something a bit special. If it's just going and doing the day to day, that's not very inspiring, and people will come, they'll go, they'll come, they go, and I don't think you'll ever achieve what you really want to achieve. You've got to have, you know, an end game. What does the business look like when it's finished? You know, and then you look back and then you work back 3 years, 1 year, and then bring it back to a 90-day plan that you engage all your team with and allocate tasks for them to do, so that everyone's accountable to achieve, you know, the long-term vision of the company.
I was going to have a conversation with this chap who ran a very, very successful pub, so successful that he raised enough capital to buy 2 pubs, and he said it was like the worst thing he could possibly do, because it was very much personality driven. It's very much him. And he said, you know, when I was 100% in one pub, I was there all the time, I could do it. When I was 50% in one and 50% in another, I was actually not 50% in one and not 50% in another, if that makes sense. Do you find that comes across a lot, Alison, in terms of the scaling up?
Yeah, I mean, I guess what you're talking about there, I mean, from my own career, going from site manager to area manager, and I was looking after 12 businesses, having looked after one. And I guess it ties in with what Nick was saying earlier, is it's around having, I mean, it all sounds quite corporate speak, but these things do work. It's having that longer term vision. It's having your values identified, and it's those sorts of things that attract and inspire. So, you know, we know at the moment, particularly even more so than 6 months a year ago, recruitment in the industry is a real challenge, probably because it's booming and everybody's employed. And I think this is the answer. You've got to be able to articulate those things and develop an employer brand to be able to attract the talent, because probably the best people are employed and they're not looking. You know, there's probably only about 10%, even less at the moment, of the job market actually looking. And maybe they're looking because they're not doing a great job where they are, and you perhaps don't want them as part of the team. So this is about how you inspire and attract people to join you and come on the journey with you. And it's having these sorts of things. You probably got it in your head, what you stand for and what you want your company to be, but it's having it brought out and put down onto paper, which can then be communicated through your website and brochures, etc., etc.
So you've got the client, you're engaged, and what's the most obvious hurdles that you have to overcome to start with, Nick? What's the ones that come up more often? Is it to do with the individual or
with the business owners, or with the
with the business owners? So they've come on engaged, they open up to you. What's the things that the most why it wouldn't work more if it didn't happen?
Well, I think by the time someone has reached out to you to want your help, they've accepted that they can't do it themselves, and I don't know if there's any major barriers. I think what I find is that people, once they've made that decision, they're open to your advice, your expertise, and your knowledge. So otherwise, why would they bother? So I think it's not necessarily always the resistance you get from the business owner. I think they're already bought in, and they can see the benefit of what you're going to do and how to do things, how you go about that process, starting that process. Sometimes you get a bit of resistance from individuals within the business because some people don't like change, and sometimes they're the problem. So I think statistically, what I heard years ago around the Action Coach Network, and we're in 80 or 90 odd countries these days, is that when we start coaching people, 30% of their staff on average will leave. But that means that generally it's the 30% that are causing most of the problems. And the people that do buy into it, that like the vision, that like having values, like having structure, like following systems, all those kind of things, they're the ones you want to keep. And then the new ones that you recruit in the right way are only ever going to know that way that they come into. So over time, you can help to sort of change the culture. So I think the only resistance is from the people that are causing you a lot of the problems. Otherwise, why would they be resistant to wanting to build the business? So I think a lot of the headaches, I think it's normally like the 80-20 rule. So 20% of your people will cause you 80% of your problems. So if you get rid of those, then obviously you're going to start getting less challenges, putting out less fires, and having a much less stressful life.
And Alison, when, like, if somebody said to you, when am I going to start seeing the benefits to my business? How long does the process take?
Oh, how long is a piece of string? Because it very much depends on how fast somebody is willing to go and wants to go. So, I've had some clients that have gone from maybe 200 to over 1 million in turnover in a year. Others have taken perhaps 3 years to get there. It comes down to the talent dynamics profile, actually. Certain profiles, they tend to make decisions very quickly and go with their gut and go at the speed of light, and you have to kind of sometimes slow them down because they're the spenders. And then other people are perhaps more cautious and need more support and encouragement and confidence to take that next step. But just tapping into what Nick was saying there as well, I think it's worth pointing out. I see all of those problems as well. I also see there's sometimes a fear of dealing with problem people because A, they're worried about getting it wrong from an employment law perspective, and B, they're worried about, well, where am I going to get the next person from? I do think recruitment is a particular challenge in this industry. It is in any industry, isn't it? Any business is down to, is only as successful as the people that you can bring on the journey with you. But I think in this industry, it is it's not impossible, but it is a challenge. It needs some thinking around in terms of what makes you different as an employer, what makes you attractive, why would people want to come and work with you? And I think once people see, oh right, now I'm getting a stream of candidates through, they then get that confidence to perhaps take more action and be a bit stricter on the people that are causing problems.
So Nick, in terms of the coach's role then, is it more in trying to position the business as somewhere to go and work for, or how involved would you get into that recruiting the right people?
Well, we've got an amazing proven recruitment process. Being an action coach, being a franchise, everything is systemized, as you can imagine. And the recruitment process that we have, the clients, the feedback is phenomenal. And once you take them through the right hoops and get the right people, you're testing for attitude throughout. Not necessarily even about their skill set initially, it's about getting the right mindset. So the official process for our recruitment process is not actually sending a CV in. Now it is with Indeed, because you can only apply by sending your CV in. But we get people to phone a number and answer 3 very simple questions. If they fail to answer those questions or phone that number, then they've deselected themselves. So it's not a selection process, it's a deselection process. It's like X Factor, you start with a massive amount of people and you go down to that and that and that. But people have to do something because it shows that they care and they're really serious about working for you, and that job has my name written all over it, kind of thing. So I think having the right recruitment process is absolutely crucial. But the skills come second in a way, because if they haven't got the right attitude but they've got the skills, that's never going to work, because they'll never be able to work with other people and maybe start annoying the good ones. And if those good ones are looking to leadership from you, and if you're not doing anything about it, or you're too scared, or you don't know, or like Alison said, scared about employment law issues, then you'll end up losing your best people. Because they just can't stand the thought of working another day with that individual, even though on paper they might be brilliant. It's never going to be a good person fit for the company.
I'm desperate to get as many questions in as I possibly can, but and jumping around a little bit. But with a skilled, hands-on person that starts developing the company and does well because of what they do, how difficult is it to teach them about how to run the business, rather than just purely focus on the bit that they love and they enjoy and what got them to that level that they've already got to? I've got to come, Nick. Sorry.
So I think they've got to look at their why and what's the bigger picture. Why are they doing this? Why are they actually in business in the first place? What do they want their life to look like? And I think if they don't know what that is, then they're never going to be able to achieve what they need to achieve in the business. So a lot of people actually don't really necessarily have any life goals. They don't think, well, what does my life look like in 5 years, 10 years time? It should be life by design rather than life by accident. So I think in order to achieve what they need to do, what they need to achieve, the goal should be driven from a personal point of view first, and then think, right, okay, what does the business need to achieve and deliver in order to make that my reality and my family's reality? And I think once they've got clarity on their why and what they want to leave in terms of legacy for their family, or what they want to to give their families, then I think you can get momentum and push the business forward and get excited about it.
Alison, have you got anything to add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would completely agree with all of that. It's where we start as well, is your bigger why, because if it's just about making more money, well, that will never be enough. It will never be enough to get you through the tough times. And often people end up making the money and then it's like, oh, what now? There's something missing. So you have to have that bigger pull. I think also to answer your question, which I think is how can everybody sort of learn how to run a business? It comes down to, again, where your strengths lie. So giving the example of before, if somebody's more on the people side and that's where their strengths are, and we find that this is a relief to people, because it's almost giving them permission to not be the expert at the numbers. It's about finding somebody else who's what we call in flow, doing those sorts of tasks. So I had one client, to put it into context, who is a supporter profile. He's a builder. It's not that he can't do the numbers, but it's very draining for him. It's not energizing. And so we brought in a fantastic office manager, PA, who's very much into the detail and has just created this amazing customer process from the point of inquiry through to winning the work. And she takes care of all of that. And he just gets involved at the bits that he loves doing, so meeting the clients. And all of that's taken care of. So she's in flow doing her thing that she's strong at, and he's in flow doing his thing, and that's what enables the business to grow.
And we touched on this a bit earlier about scaling up. How do you see your roles in helping a company? Because at the moment, especially in the landscaping sector, there seems to be a lot of work, and one of the questions is, well, if we scaled up, could we win more? Where would you see your role in helping that happen, or questioning whether that would happen, or it's the right time to do it, Nick?
I think it comes down to a number of things, really. I mean, it's like building a skyscraper. Unless you've got the right foundations first, if you built it on sandy ground, every time you try and scale up and develop it and put another floor on, it comes crashing down. So you've got to have real solid foundations. And I think you've got to have the right systems in place, the right processes, procedures being followed. If you don't have those in place, then you're never going to be able to scale up, because there'll be too many mistakes. And the busier you get, the more of a nightmare you'll create. So I think having the right organizational chart, the right framework, the right people in the right positions with the right skills in their flow, like Alison says, and making sure that everyone has very clear roles and responsibilities, so that they know exactly what their part is to play in building that, assuming they're the right people. But then it is, once you've got the documented procedures in terms of this is how we do things here, and you've got everything all nicely organized, like systemology, the other side of my business, which is about putting all this stuff in place, then you'll get to the point where it is scalable. And then the final part is then it's saleable, because if it's not fully systemized, not fully documented, it will work, and it's better than having it just in everyone's heads. But once it's all down in a nice, logical, organized manner, with this is how you do things step by step by step, that truly will be scalable and then saleable at that point.
Alison, are you shocked sometimes with the lack of understanding in terms of profit margins and why they're pricing things and what happens on that? Are you often exposed to businesses that don't really know and don't really understand that?
All the time, but I wouldn't say I'm necessarily shocked by it, because I always say it will be a little bit like me going out to, in this context, landscape a garden. I wouldn't have the foggiest, because no one's ever shown me to do it. You know, so why would I? And that's the problem, is that tradespeople are often very, very good at what they do because that's what they've been trained to do. And so they are good at what they do, they get recommended, they start employing people, and lo and behold, before they know it, whether they like it or not, they're actually an owner of a trade business, but they haven't necessarily been trained in how to run a business. So I think that's essentially what Nick and I both do. I'm guessing is you know, using the skills and knowledge on how to run a business and scale up. Definitely.
And I wonder, the construction and landscape industry, is that reflected in other sectors that you've been involved in, Nick, or is it, you know, is there more of an emphasis here that we're much more focused on the core skill rather than the business acumen?
I think it doesn't matter which sector you're in, the same challenges are in every single kind of industry and sector that you can think of, really. The generalized principles are all the same, and I think the challenges are the same, obviously applied differently, and you've got different situations, but whether you're a landscaper, whether you're a solicitor, or whether you're a shopkeeper, I think people don't necessarily always know that have the knowledge in the numbers and the business acumen, the business education. And I think those clients that have chosen and do choose to educate themselves off their own back, to read books or listen to audio books, those ones obviously are much more successful. But it comes back to education, really. And I think, exactly as Alison said, you've got to know your numbers, and you've got to become as good as you are operationally with the business as well. So you've got the operational knowledge of being very good at what you do, but often the business knowledge is down here. So our job is to bring them both up. And at that point, you know, you have a great business, but you've got to be prepared to want to learn and listen and take advice. Otherwise, what's the point? You know, you're not going to get where you want to get to. You know, you'll stay where you are.
I think the challenges are the same in any sort of industry. They tend to be around the people often. I think they potentially are more painful in this industry, and the reason being is, I think if you're good at what you do in this industry, there isn't so much of an emphasis on the sales and marketing. That might sound strange, but people often feel the need to invest in sales and marketing, but they're not actually making the most of the demand that's there for them at the moment. So, you know, I always challenge, are you sure the phone's always getting answered promptly? Are you sure every email is being responded to? Let's get the customer journey really, really smooth before we look at inviting more people in to potentially have a bad experience or a not so good experience. And I think that's the key bit as you grow and you scale, to keep close to your customer, to make sure that you are measuring your customer experience and you're catching any problems and you can react in time before it affects your reputation.
I'll add to that, Jim, following on exactly from what Alison said. You call it the customer journey, which is what we call the critical client flow. And it's identifying the 20% of systems and tasks that deliver 80% of your results. So it's exactly about, you know, how you generate the lead, how you deal with that inquiry, how you then take them through your sales process, how you get them onboarded, how you invoice them, and then how you deliver. Because that's pretty much most of what you do, and everyone should be focused around all those key activities. There's loads of other systems and processes around the business, HR and management systems and stuff, but you know, it's those crucial tasks and processes of exactly what you do and how you do it as a business. And I think once you've got that framework in place, then everything else becomes a lot easier.
I am conscious of time. There's a couple of things I desperately want to talk about, and one of them is just on that there. So, you know, this industry, especially again the landscaping industry, is quite creative, and it's creative people and systems don't always match together. And I just wondered how that works. And then I'd like to understand a bit, like, it's quite an owner-operating business here, and people get to a certain age and then they think, oh, it's time to sell, how to sell. Where does your roles come in that, and how do you do it? Very quickly on that, creative and systems, how do they merge together, and then where do you sit in terms of helping shape a business to be sold or passed on? Nick, let's start with you on that.
I think people get scared of systems and they think you're going to become robots in the business, but what it actually does, it frees you up to be more efficient with your time so that you can focus on being more creative as opposed to making mistakes and trying to fix those mistakes. So it's a bit of a myth really that systems sort of nullifies or impacts on creativity. Actually, when you put it into practice, it gives people more time to be creative as opposed to the opposite, because just because it's systemized doesn't mean that you lose all your creativity. It's a framework to make sure you're doing things in the right way, but as a result of doing that, you'll get more time to be creative.
And that sort of, as people are getting older, in terms of advising and helping them in a situation to make a decision whether to sell their business or to pass it on, what's the role that you play there?
I think once you've got everything systemized and you know this is how we do things here in all different departments with all different processes, then it becomes less owner dependent. And the trouble is, if the business owner is still part of that equation, take the business owner out of that. How much is your business worth? It's not really going to be worth as much. But if it's fully systemized to the point where if you wanted to sell it, and a lot of people say, oh, I never want to sell my business. But if something goes wrong or you get health problems or your circumstances change, it's nice to have the choice whether you choose to step away. But at that point, you might not want to sell the business because it's working nice and profitably without you, like a well-oiled machine. So you might actually, I can go and do other things, still keep a nice little passive income and check the KPIs every week or every month and make sure that everything's where it should be. But unless it's systemized, if you're still part of that equation, you're never really going to be able to step out. And if you do want to step out, then the price that you'll be able to command will be obviously a lot lower. But they reckon that if a business is fully systemized to the way that it should be, it's between 2 to 5 times more if you do want to sell it. But if you're part of that equation, it's going to affect the price you'll be able to get for it.
Alison, what's that stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. I think a lot of people think that if they've got a profitable business, then they've got a saleable asset. And as Nick says, if it's too dependent on that business owner, then it's not as saleable. You know, a lot of people, they're very proud of saying, you know, all our business comes from recommendation and word of mouth, which is great. But again, take that person out of it. What marketing channels do you have? What is guaranteed to continue working without you? Because that's what people are, you know, if they're buying a business, that's what they're buying. They want something to continue and existing, and not just fritter away over for a few months. So yeah, I agree with that.
So the last one, and I'm going to come back to you, Alison, then just a couple of tips about someone that's going to watch this and is going to turn around and look into their office. What would you say? Check this or look at this.
I think there's probably 3 things, if I may. I think, and this applies to any business, think about your brand. And when I talk about brand, think about your internal customer, so that's your employee, and your external customer. So staying close to both of those camps in terms of remaining attractive so that you're always attracting people to want to come and work with you, and you're always attracting new customers. So it's staying close to those, so surveys, measuring, and adapting as you grow. And then on top of that would be the numbers. Stay close to your numbers, know what metrics are key for your business. So in any business, I would say there's probably between 3 and 5 what we call critical indicators, and these are things that you should be tracking and measuring on a weekly basis, that enable you. It's almost like traffic lights, you know, it turns amber and you know, oh, we might have a problem there, before it's too late. So it's numbers and people, but split the people out into the customer and your team.
And the same with you, Nick, just with the finishing line to sum it up for all business coach, mentors, advisors. Why should a business owner have one?
Well, I think if you're stuck with where you are and you want to be here, but you're stuck here, what's going to bridge the gap to get you from here to there? And I think that's the point where most people struggle. They just don't know what that next step is they need to take in order to achieve that. But what I was going to say is, in the wise words of Jim Rohn, who is a very famous American business philosopher, always said, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, because when you get better, life gets easier. So I think, you know, if you keep doing what you've always done, you get what you've always got, and all those wonderful cliches, but, you know, it's true. In order to have better, you've got to become better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. Joe, I'm fascinated. I wish I could carry on, so I'm getting told that we must finish now. So a massive thank you for both of you. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for giving us the advice.
It's been a pleasure.
If anyone wants to get in contact with me, please let us know at Pro Landscaper, and we'll pass on the information and details. Again, thank you, you two. Thank you for the viewers. And don't forget, next week we've got Gareth that we look at and talk to and find out a bit more information about the landscaping sector. Again, thank you, Nick. Thank you, Alison. And bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.